Rambles.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Rambles. I am here with Julia Clark, who's going to be talking to us today about career changes and how we navigate that. Hi Julia, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do and what you currently do and who you are and things?
Yes. Even my description now kind of gives a hint as to how my supervisors told me it's called a portfolio career when you've done lots of different things. I just thought I had a completely chaotic CV. So now I am, I'm doing a PhD in, it's in a department which is social sciences applied to healthcare improvement research. So maternity related. I run the positive birth movement in Sheffield. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher. I'm involved in setting up a maternity cooperative in Sheffield with other midwives and doulas. I'm a mum to one. I'm a registered midwife, but not practicing at the moment. That's what the co-op's about. I think that's most of it.
I love that. Amazing. Just think about how we connected. I think it was over Instagram.
I have like a silent partner who is a photographer who's always telling me that my website and Instagram account aren't attractive enough, and then he makes stuff look nicer. And then I bought some of your beautiful images to use on my website, so that's how it started.
Shall we talk about how you ended up where you are now? When you were younger, what was your dream? I'm going to be a
farmer's wife.
Love it. I was going to be a lion happy maker. I thought zoos were really sad, and I still do. And I wanted to go into the zoos and make the lions happy, apparently.
Okay.
Tell me more about how you got from farmer's wife to your beautiful portfolio of where you are now.
I got into foreign languages when I was about 16. So I hadn't particularly loved languages up until that point, and I went on a family holiday to Germany and clicked with the language. So I started German from scratch and did French at Cambridge University, going back now nearly 20 years. While I was there, I dabbled in acting, which is something else we've connected over. And I also started doing some stand-up comedy, which is part of my dark past now. So I finished that degree. I decided not to go into acting because I met with an agent and she said, I'm going to give you the advice I'd give my own daughter, which is don't do it unless you can't be happy doing anything else. And I thought, fair enough. I can imagine doing quite a lot of other things than enjoying it. So I worked as a youth worker then in South London for a charity called Fairbridge, and this is where I've started to weave a narrative through my career. So I worked a lot with women who were in the kind of 16 to 25-year-old age bracket, and I key worked that group, and I really love working with young women. And so I thought, well, that's what I want to do. I want to work with women, but I didn't want to stay in the charity sector because you can't, eventually you move into management, you kind of stop doing the thing that you enjoy about it. Put that on one side. I went traveling. I ended up in Australia where I worked as a legal secretary and started doing stand-up comedy. I did that for several years, came back to the UK, did comedy here for a while, but it wasn't as much fun as in Australia. Worked at various places to fund my life, and then kind of got close to 30 and thought I need to do something else. At which point, I'm getting to the end of this, my sister said, you take a good midwife. So I started looking into it, and I was really, really drawn to the profession for, I think, probably the theory and the politics as much as the actual work. I like the kind of feminist aspect of it. It's really fiery compared to other types of healthcare, I think. So I started my midwifery training, worked in London for a while, moved up to Sheffield, went from community-based midwifery to hospital-based midwifery, and didn't love that as much. So jumped ship into research, started my PhD, partly because a friend who was doing a PhD said it was quite a good thing to do if you wanted to have a baby. Had a baby, nearly finished my PhD. To fund things in between, I started teaching hypnobirthing, and then that part of my work has just grown and grown and grown.
Incredible.
That's sort of where we are now.
Amazing. The end. I love it. Thank you very much for sharing. How have you found transitioning through different careers?
I really feel that everything I've done has given me something that I took on to the next step. I think, God, I learned a lot doing youth work. Going from Cambridge into South London, where I was like a fish out of water, but it didn't matter because what I learned was, if you don't pretend to be something you're not and you have good intentions, usually you'll get on well with people. That was a great experience. I learned a lot. The comedy, I did it for the first time because I watched someone do it and said, I'll never do that. And then once I said that, I thought, well, I should, because if that's like the worst thing I can imagine doing, I should just try it. And then I tried it and it went from there, and it was good. It went well. It's such an odd thing because you stand up in front of a group of people who sometimes want you to fail. Not often, but it's always a possibility. And so you have to work to get people on side. amplified in a way that you don't generally. You know, when you're speaking to an academic audience, they don't want to, well, maybe they do, but they're not so obvious if they want to see you kind of you up.
Yeah.
When you're teaching a group of people who've come to do hypnobirthing, they want to learn about hypnobirthing. So I think it's some of the hardest public speaking you'll do with stand-up comedy, and once you've done that, it gives you a little bit of a what's the worst that can happen in other settings. I heard about a comedian who'd been punched in the nads when he was on stage. Like, that's unlikely to happen.
Well,
it's very unlikely to happen to me because I have none, even if I have them.
I really like what you said about it being, you know, the last thing you could ever imagine doing, so I might as well do it. I think that's so great because I've grown up doing acting and musical theatre. It was sort of the thing I was known for in sort of my family. It was such a big part of my identity, but I realised that it wasn't something that was making me happy. And the thing that I said to myself was, I will never quit this, and I will never stop doing this. But then I realized it wasn't making me happy, so I did. And so it's kind of like the other way around. And then it led me to here. Drama school was such a horrible time for me personally.
You should have spoken to that agent I spoke to.
Yeah, that would have saved me a lot of time.
I remember the room I was in when I messaged my family to tell them that I decided to stop doing stand-up. And it felt like a breakup. You know that feeling when you are in a relationship that's making you unhappy and you can't see a way out, and it just makes you feel sick.
Yeah,
because you feel trapped, and then suddenly you realise that you do have a choice. I mean, it sounds really dramatic, but it felt like that because I'd invested years in it, and I was embarrassed. My dad had like loaned me money to buy a car to make it work in the UK and all that stuff, and suddenly I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop. And I think I did one gig after that, and I never did it again.
I totally get that. The phone call I made to leave drama school, I felt like being sick. I was so scared. Like, giving up is just something that's not like in my blueprint, but I'm so glad I did it. Like,
I'm a really big fan of giving stuff up.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I think that people feel like it's a value to always keep going, but actually some stuff is just bad for you.
You're not quitting you're quitting something that is bad for you. And yeah, that's what we did. Hooray for us. Quitting was one of the most empowering things I've ever done. Young me would have never dreamed that I would have ever said that and ever gone through that. For ages, I thought that my younger self, you know, with the big bright eyes, like looking into the future and doing all these great things, I've had such a fear that that person was going to be disappointed in the actions that I was making. But actually, looking at it now, I would have really failed that young person with the big bright eyes. I say bright eyes, I mean like curious, not like beautiful eyes. I would have like failed that person if I carried on doing the thing that was making me miserable. And so I'm glad I quit, because it was the best thing. And I don't even know if my family would be here, because I was able to start my family, and that's something I've always wanted to do, and really like delve into myself and find the thing that makes me jump for joy and find my passion. Because I thought for a long time that acting was that, but I realized it was just something that was expected of me, so I sort of forced myself to like it.
I think when we're young, we often make decisions about what we want to do based on what we think is cool. Not as in, oh, that'll make me cool, but then I love films, I want to be in films, or I love costume dramas. I was really into costume dramas when I was younger.
I love that.
I don't think you ever think about what you'll be doing. And I know they used to make us do those tests online, like, oh, I like being outdoors, I like kind of, and they were like dog groomer. They always suggested dog groomer for everyone who said they like being outdoors. But I think I've learned that I like being around people, I like interacting, I like being able to interact in a way that feels true to me.
It's just weird, changing course and being okay with your decision. You need to stop doing this for other people, because it got to that point where I was doing acting and following a life I thought was expected of me. Changing course might not work for a while, but it'll eventually straighten itself out. I didn't do anything for about 6 months after I quit. We moved from Guildford to Oxford, and I watched The Office and Castle and Parks and Rec and did knitting for 6 months in the middle of nowhere. That was the first time in my life I'd ever had a break and could get in touch with myself, and that was quite therapeutic, really.
What brought you to the birth work?
How I became a birth photographer was I was in labour with my daughter Alba, and I was trying to get things going, and I was like, I need some oxytocin, and these puppies aren't doing it. And looking at puppies, not like boobs. I oh God. I started looking at pictures of birth, and I was like, hang on a second, people are being hired to take photos of birth. And that's how I found out about birth photography. And it was like a light bulb moment. I'm just really excited to see where it's going to go.
I just remembered a time when I was a student midwife, and a midwife I was working with made, I really feel she put quite a lot of pressure on a dad to play with his partner's nipples to try and get oxytocin running, but didn't get me to leave the room. So this poor man had to sit there playing with his nipples with this student midwife in the corner of the room, and they all just looked at me and we got the giggles, and it was like the least. Laughter induces oxytocin, but I'm sure the nipple stimulation did absolutely nothing. We had quite a good connection, so it was all right.
Good. It worked in one way. It led to the laughter, which led to the oxytocin. That's the whole theme of our chat today.
I think another advantage of quitting something and going through that process of starting again is it can make you more adaptable. And I think what's happened recently with the COVID-19 situation, we've been forced, well, some people, especially some self-employed people, I think, have been forced to adapt incredibly quickly. My work was negatively affected when lockdown started, working with pregnant women. The minute they said pregnant women have to stay at home, and that was before they said everyone had to stay at home, I just went, shit. Because I had no idea, how long that was going to last for. And then my partner wasn't working, he's a photographer. It's amazing how many strategies I've tried in a 2-month period. There was a real low in the middle of it, and I was like, do you know what, I think I'm just not going to bother. What's the point? Like, you work so hard for however many years, you build something up, something like this can come along, and it's just all gone to shit. But then I kind of bounced back and I thought, no, there's this Instagram thing I've heard of, apparently the kids are doing it, and I've never really got into it. But then that was a new project, and whether that leads to more work or not, it's actually been a really fun experience. I've had 2 years of pictures of Mara, pregnancy, giving birth, Mara as a toddler, and we've never done anything with them. And so to actually be able to share them and think what stories were relevant at the time that picture came out, and storytelling is my big thing. That's why I got involved with the positive birth movement. A lot of my teaching is around storytelling, and it's quite exciting to realise that I can use Instagram in that way. But I've been impressed by how inventive you've been with your kind of window.
Thank you.
Photo shoots and things like that. I mean, it's lovely as well that for those mums who want these memories created, that they're still able to get that in some way.
Yeah, I think for me that's a big part of why I do is having positive memories, and this time is hugely negative for a lot of people, the vast majority of people. And if I can make that slightly easier by giving a nice memory or something that they can look back on and reflect in however many years, then I think that's something that's really important. And it's really important for me as well, to capture memories, because I have a terrible memory, first of all. Looking back at my own birth photos, I can sort of take myself back into those times and those emotions. I suffer quite badly with anxiety and depression, and I had really bad postnatal depression. And I have this one photo of my husband, myself and Alba just after she was born, and that always brings me so much joy. If I didn't have that photo, I would find it really hard to hold on to those moments that actually made me happy. Because I don't know about you, when I'm having a bad day, I'm like, my whole life is bad, nothing has ever gone right, and then I realize, oh, it was just a bad day. So I've printed that, and it's in our hallway, so whenever I leave the house or come home, I see that picture, it takes me back to that moment that sort of my life changed. And so the importance of capturing memories is really something that I feel really quite passionate about.
And I think to do with motherhood, sometimes some of the experiences are too conflicting to put into words in any simple way. There's a picture I shared today of me in the bath with Mara, and that was a grim day. Like, I remember, I look at that picture, and I don't know if you've looked at my face and that, but I'd been crying before the picture was taken. I had mastitis. I just said to my partner, like, I just need to be on my own. Like, I just need to have a bath. She'd just fallen asleep. I ran the bath. And then she woke up, and all she wanted was me. All she wanted was a feed. And so I took her in the bath with me, had to make the bath uncomfortably cool because I wanted a hot bath for my mastitis, but that wasn't going to happen. And she was so bloody happy. She was like, yes, I get to be in a bath with my naked mum. And so in that picture, I was really, really glum. And she just looked so smug because she got exactly what she wanted. And I remember then on top of that, Lee was like, I'm going to take some photos. I was like, oh, everyone just leave me alone. But
Yeah.
I'm really glad he did now, because I wouldn't remember that particular day in that way if I didn't have those few pictures to look at.
Exactly. Even if you're having a really shit day, I think it's really important to take pictures or have your partner take a picture, because you know that is part of motherhood and that is part of parenthood. Like, some days are going to be really shit, and that's okay, because that's part of your journey. And that's the same with careers. Like, some careers are going to be really shit.
It's a really delicate balance to strike, because actually I've loved being a mum, and I love nearly all of it, and it's been an absolute joy. But when you're in the difficult moments, it means so much to know that you're not in them because you're doing something wrong, and you're not in them because you're a crap mum. You're just in them because that's part of the experience. And whether that's through images or story, when you work in birth, I think you can feel a bit like you're telling the same story again and again and again. You know, in some ways birth is always the same, and in other ways it's always completely different.
Yeah.
I think I always try and think that when you share something now online, you're sharing it for those people who are pregnant then or have a new baby then, and they won't have thought about these things hundreds of times before or gone over it hundreds. It's always new for that person going through it, and for that reason it's always special and it's always worth saying.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your careers and your beautiful portfolio and all your memories and things. How can people find you on Instagram and your website?
I'm at Birth Up North on Instagram. I am birthupnorth.co.uk.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been so great to chat with you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me for the second episode of Han Rambles. There is going to be a new episode up every single Wednesday, and we've got some amazing guests coming up, and I'm really excited to share their stories with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.
Han Rambles.